The Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein will today hear the state's appeal to lengthen the jail term of Oscar Pistorius for murdering his girlfriend Reeva Steenkamp. The state's going to argue why it believes that the 6-year sentence is far too lenient. Pistorius started serving his sentence in 2016 after the Supreme Court of Appeal overturned his original conviction on a charge of culpable homicide. Let's cross over to Chriselda. She's in Bloemfontein. She's going to be covering this story for us. She has, in fact, been covering it from the very, very beginning. This, of course, has had the world gripped, and once again, the cameras turn on and the world is watching. So, Chriselda, good morning to you. And talk to us about what we can actually expect. I'll ask my question here. What can we expect today? I mean, obviously, we're going to be hearing arguments from the NPA saying that this sentence is far too lenient. But talk us through the process. What happens after the argument, and how long does it take to actually get a decision?
Well, Leanne, just before we get to that, you can see that Oscar Pistorius' lawyers have arrived, including Advocate Barry Rue, and on the side of the state as well, Andrea Johnson will be representing the state this morning. She arrived just a few moments ago, and we recall, of course, this is after Advocate Nel had left the National Prosecuting Authority and is now with AfroForum. And essentially, what's expected to take place here today, you would recall, of course, that this is the second time that the state wants to overturn a high court ruling. Recall that the state was successful in the previous move by it to get Oscar Pistorius' culpable homicide conviction overturned to murder, and that's where we saw the 6-year prison sentence given to Oscar Pistorius. And when that sentence was handed down to the former athlete, the National Prosecuting Authority had already indicated that that sentence was shockingly lenient, and that they would petition the Supreme Court of Appeal for them to hear that essentially what they are saying is that the jail term that Oscar Pistorius was given was too lenient and it does not fit the crime that was committed. And just a bit earlier on, as you did play on the program as well there, Leanne, the Reeva Steenkamp's family has also arrived here. Reeva Steenkamp's mother, June, was unable to speak to the media. We understand that she is not feeling well. Her husband, Barry, is not here at this court this morning, but essentially what the Steenkamps are saying is that they're hoping that this court will mete out what they say is justice this time around. And they're saying at the moment they're just going to focus on Reeva Steenkamp's legacy as well as her foundation, but they say that they do have faith in the justice system, given the fact that it was this very court that had previously overturned that culpable homicide conviction to murder. But as I already indicated, what the state will then have to do here today is to convince this court that the 6-year jail term that Oscar Pistorius was given was too lenient. It does not fit the crime. If you recall, during the trial itself, where the state had really harped on the issue of the brutality that Reeva Steenkamp had encountered when Oscar Pistorius shot her through the bathroom door. So what the state is essentially saying is that it wants this court to this time overturn that 6-year prison sentence and wants perhaps what we understand is that a 15-year prison term for Oscar Pistorius. We will be chatting to the National Prosecuting Authority spokesperson Luvuyo Mfako just before 9 o'clock, so you should stay tuned for that as well. But the state is quite adamant that Oscar Pistorius should be doing more jail time. And just to answer your question regarding how long all of this is expected to take, I did have a peek inside just a few moments ago, Leanne, and we understand that the matter has been set down for 2 hours. So we're not really expecting very long proceedings unless there's a quick change in the time that the proceedings will take here at the Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein. But the state quite adamant that this court needs to come to what they say is a correct decision, in that Oscar Pistorius needs to do more jail time behind bars. And just here next to me, we'll show you just a bit later on in our next crossing as well, Leanne, some of the supporters of Oscar Pistorius that were here the last time when that culpable homicide conviction conviction was overturned to murder are also here. We will have a word with them just a bit later on, but we're expecting them to share the same sentiment that they did the last time in saying that Oscar Pistorius has shown remorse. And you'd recall, of course, that's one of the issues that the defense had also put through during the trial, as well as when we sat here at the Supreme Court of Appeal, when the state was trying to get that murder conviction changed from culpable homicide to murder. So that's what we're expecting to take place in this court. But we do understand judgment will be reserved in this matter, and I understand that perhaps a decision could be made just towards the end of November, if I understand. I see the National Prosecuting Authority spokesperson has just arrived. Let me see if I can speak to him. Mr. Luvuyo Mfaku, if he can spare us a few moments of his time. I'll just get one of my colleagues to try and bring the spokesperson of the National Prosecuting Authority. He's just arrived. Just bear with us for a second. Mr. Luvuyo Mfaku, we are live. If we could just speak to you for just a few seconds. We had scheduled him for just shortly before 9 o'clock. He's clearly on time. Mr. Mfaku, thank you very much for your time. Luvuyo Mfaku, the spokesperson for the National Prosecuting Authority. Quite an important day for you as the National Prosecuting Authority. You had long indicated that the sentence that was given to Oscar Pistorius, the jail time, was too lenient. What will you be arguing in this court, trying to convince it today that the decision that was initially taken was incorrect?
Firstly, we going to argue for the appeal to be granted, that is the leave to appeal. We have to argue that there are prospects of success when we get to the merits of the matter. We've always indicated that murder carries a minimum of 15 years. As much as we understand that 15 years is not cast in stone, judges have got a discretion to deviate when compelling and substantial circumstances exist. But in this case, we're saying the judge exercised that discretion too leniently in giving a 6-year sentence. We further arguing that any reasonable court exercising its discretion on sentencing would not come to this kind of a sentence in respect of the gravity, if you consider the gravity of this offense.
So essentially, we recall when you had initially said that you were going to petition the Supreme Court of Appeal to hear this matter because you felt that the what was meted out to Oscar Pistorius was lenient. Does that mean you're hoping for 15 years in that Oscar Pistorius should spend more jail time? One of the other issues is that the defense will perhaps say that Oscar Pistorius has shown remorse. That's what they've been saying during the course of the trial. And when we were back here at the Supreme Court of Appeal, when you successfully overturned culpable homicide to murder.
We understand that sentencing proceedings is a balancing act. You look at the interest of the accused, his personal circumstances, interest of the community, and the interest of justice. In this case, we're saying that balancing act was not done in a judicious manner because you would not go to 6 years from a period of 15 years, which is prescribed by legislation. We're not saying he must impose that particular sentence, but we're saying he must impose a reasonable sentence considering the gravity of the offense.
Luvuyo Mfaku, the spokesperson of the National Prosecuting Authority, thank you very much for your time. We were scheduled to speak to him a bit later on, but he just managed to walk in, Leanne.
All right, thank you so much there to our reporter Chriselda Lewis, live from the Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein. Do stay tuned to Channel 404. She'll be crossing live throughout the